What's going on, guys? This morning we have another new leak to look at in regard to the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5 and Z Flip 5. I say this is a new leak, but I guess it's just another source kind of confirming some stuff we've been hearing. Back several months ago, we had heard that the Z Fold 5 will be featuring that 108 megapixel sensor that is in the S22 Ultra and back a couple of generations. And of course, when these leaks were occurring, I reported them to you, but I also said that I was a bit skeptical of them because we had just made the jump to a 50 megapixel sensor in the Z Fold 4 1 year prior. So it seemed really odd to me to go from a 12 to a 50 to a 108 all in consecutive years. And we have another source now confirming that that is in fact not going to be happening. This is Yogesh Brar, who I have cited on this channel several times already, and I will probably continue to cite Yogesh because he seems to be right a lot of the time about these things that they are hearing and then tweeting for us to consume as the general population. This is what they tweeted. Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5, 50 megapixel, 12 megapixel ultra wide, 10 megapixel tele, and if you know much about the Z Fold 4, you will know that is exactly the same setup in terms of megapixel count. Now, there are things in life besides megapixel count, but those are the things that are most identifiable about the Z Fold 4's camera setup. If we look at the Z Flip 5, 12 megapixel and then 12 megapixel ultra wide. And again, this is the same setup as we've seen on prior Z Flip devices. So again, nothing obviously changing for either one of these devices. Should not be all that surprising to you though. He goes on to say improved hinge, new image sensors, which is interesting. We'll loop back around to that in a moment. Larger outer displays, Qualcomm Snapdragon for Galaxy. So there's a few interesting things here. So the improved hinge, we've already talked about a bunch of times on this channel. It is what they're calling a water drop or dumbbell hinge, which will allow the devices to fold totally flat, as well as reducing the visibility of the crease on those tablet screens or on the screen on the Z Flip 5. We've talked about this a million times. New image sensors. Now, this one is a little bit more complicated because you may look at that and think, well, but these all are the same as last year, so how can it be a new image sensor? Well, with the Z Flip devices, we kind of just saw what he's probably talking about here. From year to year, when we went from, I believe it was 3 to 4, what they did is they increased the sensor size of the primary sensor, which basically allowed it to gather more light to improve the image processing, to improve the image quality. Okay, it was still a 12 megapixel sensor, but it was a sensor that gathered more light and therefore was an improved image sensor. We're probably going to be seeing something very similar to that with these new Fold and Flip devices. Now, which of these sensors will be receiving that benefit? Can't really say much as far as that goes because he doesn't say much as far as that goes. I would say that on both of these, the ultra wide are probably really good candidates for this because the ultra wide are probably the weakest cameras on either one of these devices. The telephoto, which is probably remaining a 3x telephoto on the Z Fold 5, could definitely use some love as well, but the ultra wides do seem to always be kind of the weakest sensors on a lot of these devices. What about larger outer displays? Now, we've heard time and time again that the outer display, the cover display on the Z Fold 5 is going to be more or less exactly the same. Now, is there a chance that the hinge bit on one side that kind of acts as a bezel could be shrunk even further? I suppose that is entirely possible, although he does not go into that detail. On the Z Flip 5, however, we know for a fact that that cover display is getting a ton bigger to compete with the likes of the Oppo Find N2 Flips of the world. So definitely count on that happening. And what about Qualcomm Snapdragon for Galaxy? Well, we just saw this with the S23 line. And what it amounted to was a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 that had a bit higher boost clocks, more or less. It could hit a slightly higher clock rate, and so that is why it got this name. Expect that to also be in tow for the Flip and Fold devices. Guys, not much more to say about this small news story this morning. Hopefully this breakdown is interesting to you. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more content just like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.